didn't dovetail into the roundabouts, which were the interim solution at both River Road and 32nd.
There might be, depending upon the council's pleasure, an in-between kind of place that doesn't completely yank it off of the plan, but maybe there's a menu of choices around the ultimate long-term vision with different components to it. I'm not an expert in this area to understand what that would do to our advocacy, but it seems like it would be unfortunate to compromise any effectiveness we might have in advocacy to try to get something funded and future opportunities. And I don't know if I heard that if you say no roundabouts, it compromises our ability to deal with other solutions. But I also heard that it might a little bit. And I just would hate to see us compromise our ability to do whatever it is that we decide to advocate for.
So you're saying with the wording on this, you're talking about leaving some kind of wording in there that says we desire some kind of interchange at Washougal River Road.
And the others.
In 27th and 32nd, just leaving it open and not saying what we want there, that's a concern for us.
The only part that doesn't work for is if you have to identify dollar amounts.
Right.
And priorities.
Start getting into specifics as far as air quality, emissions, CMAQ, and or congestion mitigation. That's where it gets a little bit more specific. I did want to mention, and Molly alluded to it earlier with the partnerships, who's a part of RTC. When administration originally approached WashDOT as well as RTC, there was a lot of support east of Washougal for the highway roundabouts, specifically Skamania County and all the way up to Klickitat, and that was via Commissioner Pierce at that time. So there were other individuals that were part of that outreach effort.
I would add that, if you don't give a direction as a council and you're wishy-washy on it, you'll never go anywhere. You gotta have a clear vision. There's a lot more need than there is money.
Yeah.
If you don't have a clear vision, you're gonna have a hard time competing against everyone else who has their ducks all lined up.
I've got a question, Trevor, on the 2010 six-year tip, MR1, says SR 14, 15, 27, 32nd intersection improvements, conceptual design only. What's the scope of a conceptual design? What does it do? What does it look at?
Conceptual design is basically what Reed Middleton provided for the scenario before DOT and RTC. A full-blown interchange, conceptual design is going to be a lot more specific, a lot more involved. So when the 15th, now River Road, 27th and 32nd were identified, there was emphasis on the interim solution for the highway roundabouts, River Road and 32nd, and then ultimately full build out of 27th Street with the underpass for the full-blown interchange and flyover Main Street to E Street for that second connection via bridge. So it was looking at option 1, roundabouts interim, and then full-blown 27th Street with flyover to E Street. If that makes sense. 2 portions to the conceptual design.
So, okay.
Basically, getting your cost estimate or value engineering, if it would be feasible. Dale alluded to the ballpark price tags on highway roundabouts, design and right-of-way with construction, and there's $100 million discrepancy there, close to it, which may be skewed as well, but is ballpark.
Dave?
I wanted to seek clarification from you. We just heard that taking the interim solution out doesn't affect the long-term solution. You seem to have a concern about how that might affect our effectiveness in doing something, but I didn't quite understand that.
Well, there's the long-term solution, which is the $120 million decades out solution, which removing this from the plan would not impact. It's still WashDOT's plan to do that. But
Okay.
I've heard of other interim or lesser possibilities that are potential on the corridor. will say that if we take it off of our tip, that it could compromise our efforts in seeking grants, whether it's for the interim solution or to try to speed up the longer term one, although there's great skepticism about whether there'd be any efficacy in that at all. But I did hear
Could have a minor impact.
that it could have some impact, and this is not very measurable or precise metrics around what that is. It's his professional sense, just with years of judgment about having it on the list or not, and how these funding agencies work.
And I guess my response to that would be, we ought to consider any possible interim solutions that would work. I'm just not fond of roundabout as a solution that's gonna work, and therefore I wanna get that out of there. If there's a way that we can keep a placeholder in there and say we're looking at interim solutions, I don't know how that works.
You could, Jennifer?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was not on the council in May of 2007 when this all took place. Reading over the minutes, it looks like someone named Betty Sue Morris was talking about
As county commissioner.
okay, I'm sorry, thank you. The reduction in the speed limits, and basically.
You have to slow people down
Right.
through roundabouts. The
But you
average
can also
speed
slow
is
people
improved.
down with a speed limit sign, which is very inexpensive. And a lot of state
Speed limit
highways
signs
going
generally
through
don't
small
work.
towns do that. So, especially when you're coming up on a light.
Here's my lack of understanding. I'm not an engineer, I'm not even gonna pretend to be one. And I don't know how we would word this. If the desire of the council was to move to an interchange at 15th or at Washougal River Road, I don't, it seems to me that you're tight as space there. You're gonna need to expand the lane capacity. We've got room to the north on there, but, that's why I asked about the 20-foot. If they're willing to do 20-foot down there, will they do 20-foot up here? I'm saying to get that under, if you're gonna get the underpass. So, I guess at the end of the day, I would need some direction personally on, do we just put a placeholder in there to move on engineering, or not engineering, but to get a design layout? And, it's one thing to say we're gonna pull the roundabout out of there, but what's the solution? We can't just leave it hanging. There's gotta be a solution to it, so we've gotta come up with an alternative plan. So that's all I'm saying.
So I think timing-wise, and we had briefly touched on this at council Monday night, that our RFP, our request for proposals to update our transportation facility plan closed today. So we'll be reviewing those specific qualifications and obviously seeking guidance from the professional traffic engineers. When Parsons Brinkerhoff did the original transportation facility plan for Washougal, we didn't have one up to that point. There was a lot of feasibility around highway roundabouts as well as roundabouts within the city on collectors and arterials. So as we move through that process and the ranking system, that'll give us an opportunity to update the full-blown facility plan and then thus the transportation improvement plan as well.
And then take it to the regional transportation
Yep.
plan.
Dave?
And my concern about developing another alternative is that the city's gotta pay for that. And we've already developed one alternative which doesn't appear to be particularly popular with the people of Washougal. So I'm concerned